Welcome to Our 2 Cents, a podcast about money, real life, and the decisions that shape both. Welcome back to the Our 2 Cents podcast, and today we are talking about one of my most favorite topics to yap about, and that would be travel. I could talk about travel all day long. It is one of our most favorite things to do as a family, and today we want to talk specifically about how you can travel without wrecking your finances.
Yeah, this is going to be a good episode, guys. We are going to share just some practical things that we do personally, and hopefully by the end of this podcast, you'll have some tips and things that you can go and implement, which will allow you to travel to places that you might think now is not possible.
Yeah. So when you think back, is there a trip that comes to mind that we took that you felt like we were the most financially prepared for?
I think probably the trip last year over spring break.
Okay.
Yeah, we went to Europe and we went to England, France, as well as the Netherlands. Mm-hmm. But we didn't just decide we were going to travel. We've actually planned for these trips.
Researched.
We do research. We save for these trips. So it's not like the trip just pops up and we go ahead and we book the trip, right? Without being prepared financially for it. So we've got systems and things that we have in place. And with that particular trip, we had a particular budget, spending plan, whatever you want to call it, a number that we had, which the criteria was met in terms of the cost for the flights, for the accommodation, and the experiences that we wanted to do, or the things we wanted to do on the trip. Yeah. And then we went ahead and proceeded. And I think prior to that, yes, there were other trips, but I feel personally that particular trip, we made a lot of memories, but we were prepared in advance so that we could go and enjoy the trip.
Yeah. Mine was a cruise that we took with the kids. I won't say the cruise line name, but it's a very popular cruise line with kids. I bet you could probably figure it out. Yeah. So that was our very first experience with that particular cruise line. Was that the kids' first cruise?
It was. It was my first major cruise too.
That's right. Yeah. So that was 2024. Yeah. And, the great thing about cruises is you pay for them ahead of time, but then where they get you is when you're on the ship and you're spending thousands of dollars on all the extra things that aren't included. But we had laid out we drove because we left from a closer port. So
Galveston.
Yeah. So we didn't have to pay for flights, but we had planned for the cost of the trip or the cost of the package. We had planned for potentials of what we could have spent on board using a percentage formula. And so we knew going on, we were fully prepared to be able to say yes. And that's one of the most exciting things about travel is, when the kids, because I've talked about this in the previous episode or so, is the kids asking about spending money on particular things, and we have some trips coming up, and so we've told them no for some things, and being able to say yes on the trip is such a fun feeling when they want to do the special boutique here for our daughter, or our son wants to see this sporting event. And because we said no to some things here, we could say yes to things there. And that trip to me felt like we were able to say yes quite a few times.
Yeah, it was great. I enjoyed it. Yeah, even being more of a kid-orientated cruise, I honestly felt in that particular trip, I was I'm just going to go with the flow, but I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah. So why do you think when people are looking at potentially traveling while they're working towards other debts, a big one being paying off debt, why do you think people struggle with the guilt of going somewhere and traveling while also carrying debt?
I think because there's a narrative that's been painted that it's not responsible.
Yeah.
We are told that you need to be debt-free before you can start enjoying your life because you dug yourself into this hole, and so now there's consequences. And yes, there are consequences. You need to be paying your debt off, and to me the consequences is that there's interest, right? Mm-hmm. But if you manage it properly, you can actually pay your debt off and you can go ahead and travel. So I think people, just because of what a large portion of society and culture says that you shouldn't be doing these things. I mean, you hear all the time that when you've got debt, that you shouldn't go anywhere, and if you want to take a break, you got to drive, or you got to do staycations until you've got a certain amount.
You can only camp.
You can't do anything fun. And for some people, they enjoy that, right? So if you find yourself in a position where camping is great, then by all means, you do you, right?
Yeah, you do. I won't be doing camping, but you do you.
Okay, yeah. And so I know everyone wants to go camping, I know. Got to figure that one out. But at the same time, it's like you got to figure out what's important to you as an individual. If you're single watching this, like you can do both. If you are married and if you've got kids, you can do both, right? And so I think getting away from the opinions of others And again, owning your financial journey is essential. Like we've discussed in previous episodes about financial goals, right? And if you've got a proper spending plan in place, you can do both.
Yep.
And you don't have to feel guilty. I know people say, yeah, we don't want to travel because we don't want people to think that we are bragging or gloating about all these things. And I mean, if you work hard, you deserve to play hard. And who cares what other people think?
Yeah.
You are putting in the time and effort at work. You've got a family. Your kids live with you. If you're in America, till 18 apparently. If you're in South Africa, 30, hey. And so, but you don't know when your kids are going to move off or move out of the house, right? And so for me, that's key. It's like while they are with you, make as many memories, responsible memories also, right? Because we know of people maxing out credit cards for these particular trips, and all of a sudden they find themselves in a position where they might have to foreclose on a house and things like that. I was actually watching a reel yesterday where a lady spoke about this very topic. Like they just completely denied where they were financially, and they went on like a $10,000 trip.
No way.
They didn't have any means. And now they got back. They haven't paid their mortgage in 3 months, and they're about to lose their house because they wanted to go on this trip.
That's why we say you can travel and pay off debt when you do it the right way.
Yeah.
And that includes things like sinking funds.
What is a sinking fund?
A sinking fund is when you are putting money aside monthly for a particular goal. You could have multiple sinking funds. So we have a sinking fund for travel. Every time we get paid, we are automating from our bank account to a separate savings account, which do not put it in a regular bank account. Okay, you listen to me. You put it in a high yield savings account or somewhere where it can grow and it can earn interest, and you can use that money for a planned trip in the future. So you're putting money aside, the account is growing or sinking, and you are able to plan out your trip and use that account specifically instead of winging it for your cost of your trip.
Yeah, two things that on the sinking fund that you mentioned. The key is automation, right?
Yep.
Because the next episode that's gonna come out on our podcast talks about some of the systems, and we'll touch on automation. But at a high level, we, as Brittany indicated, as soon as money hits our checking account, it's gonna go into our high yield savings account, which is key. If we need to think about all these transfers, there's a possibility that we are not gonna do it, and then all of a sudden, when a trip comes up that we want to take, we might not have money set aside. So automate those transfers. And then also with the high yield savings account is let the bank pay you interest.
Yeah.
Right? So we are setting aside and we are earning interest. It's compounding, making more money by our money laying in that particular savings account. And then when it comes time for the trip, we are able to go ahead and purchase the tickets or pay for certain things. Another thing that we do with the sinking fund, guys, because you might be wondering, so do they pay with a debit card or credit card? We personally use credit cards.
We do. That's a sticky topic, though. We'll talk later about credit cards in later podcasts, but we do have a specific travel credit card that we use for responsibly, that we pay off every month. But do not get a credit card. Just use the points, okay? Because a lot of times it doesn't end up helping. It ends up hurting, and people will not stop spending.
Yeah. So you gotta. Yeah. We'll touch on that.
You got to know your limits.
Yeah.
So we've already jumped into it. We talked about a sinking fund. So let's talk about some of the other things we do, because we're here to share about a little bit about our story and our travel. So we use sinking funds. We do plan in advance. We typically don't take last minute trips unless it's an emergency. I've said before 2026 is pretty full for us. So we started planning 2025, I think, mid 2025. I was already looking at where we needed to be in 26 and starting those budgets, 6 months before the year started.
Yeah. And in some instances, even further ahead, right? Because, we've got trips planned for 27. And it's March at the time of recording this particular episode.
Yeah.
So it's being forward thinking,
but
then also identifying costs with regards to how much it's going to cost for the particular trips that we're going to take. And so that's key. Planning is essential.
And also deciding on what matters most, because there have been opportunities that have come up that maybe be like a friend trip, or we do have a family trip that we do every other year that's priority. So we have to look at do we have weddings coming up? Do we have other responsibilities, conferences that we need to be at?
Work.
Work. Yeah. What's your work schedule? And we prioritize based on what's most important to us. So we've had to say no to trips before because they're not fitting what we've budgeted for the year for travel, and we have to prioritize other things. And then another thing is balancing travel goals with other financial goals. So we've had seasons where we've had to let off the gas a little bit when it comes to travel and focus on saving for other things, saving for the house that we're in, saving for a car that we needed. And that's going to happen. There's going to be seasons where you can't go full throttle, traveling all the time, when you're going to have to really prioritize, okay, in this season, in this year, our first and foremost financial goal is whatever it is for you.
Yeah. So yeah, life happens, things happen. I would just touch on one thing around that.
Sure.
Which is not in the script, so it's totally off script.
Okay.
And that's having a emergency fund, right? Because sometimes like you might have this travel goal, but something might happen,
Sure.
Which is totally derailed everything. But if you've got an emergency fund to pull on, you might still be able to maintain your travel goals.
Yeah.
Right? And so just
absolutely.
have that in place. It's a practical thing that you can have. Because we've had goals to travel before and something pops up like the fence falling down or the roof, right? But that because we had the emergency fund in place, we could still continue with the plans. And if we didn't have that,
we would have had to dip into our travel sinking fund.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So some practical steps for you that you can take when it comes to travel. First of all is, of course, setting a budget, spending plan to include, I would start with flights, hotel, and maybe any like major events you're going to, and then add 50%, which sounds pretty high, but it is wild when you start building up your food costs. And unless this is somewhere where you go regularly and you know what the food's going to cost, because what you buy at your grocery store down the road, it could be the same chain and it's going to be a different price somewhere else. And then, of course, if you're going internationally, you have to look at the conversion rates and all of that. So start with your plan, research what the flights are, research what the hotels are, get to know the country, research, can you do laundry somewhere close by? So you're not having to pack as much, you're not paying for luggage, like all the trickle down effects when it comes to travel.
And then, like you said, add on the 50%, right?
Yep.
Because you could be planning a trip now, and like we've indicated, we plan way in advance.
Yep.
And just because something, when we are doing the initial research, it might say it's going to cost $100. All of a sudden you get there and it's $130. And if every aspect of your trip budget is down to the dollar, you might find yourself in a position where it's okay, I don't have enough money and for the trip, or while you're there, and you don't want to run into that situation. So we believe in having about 50% a buffer. You might say that's a bit extreme. Then maybe have a 30% buffer, but have something so that when you are in a particular place, that you're not going to be caught off guard by any changes. Or if you were going to use a particular vendor, let's say you were going to go paddleboarding, right? And all of a sudden you got there and that particular vendor wasn't available anymore, but there was one next door and it was slightly more expensive, you can still go ahead and make the memory. But so the buffer is essential.
Absolutely. Another thing is traveling in low season. So we will research in specific countries, what's low season, when are there less tourists going to be there, and typically flights are more affordable and cheaper in those seasons. Of course, you have to consider the weather and other environmental things going on in low season. There's sometimes, there could be hurricane season, and that's what makes it low season. Yeah. You might want to take that into consideration.
And that covers everything from flying to a place, or even cruises, right? Like our 2024 cruise, we tend to go just after when kids go back to school, just after winter.
In January.
So all of a sudden the prices are significantly low. And I think we save thousands by going when we do.
Absolutely. Another thing would be using free resources. So we have this Facebook page that we love. You can send us a message. Find us on social media and send us a message, and I'll send you the name of the Facebook page. And they will call out low-cost flights. And so we kind of go with the costs. So we might want to go, we were looking at a trip to go to a particular country in Europe, and based on the time of the year, it was going to be really expensive. And a deal came up for another country, and we're like, hey, we're going to shift plans. We're going to be flexible, which is another thing I have on here, is just flexibility when it comes to the time of the year, the time of the week. And I know that's not 100% possible, but I'm just giving you the tips of what will help. Being flexible when with the airlines you're booking, the time of the day that you're booking, the hotels that you're booking, all of that can contribute to little savings here or there. But you have to have the time to research and to plan ahead of time to be able to watch these trends. And then you'll start to see kind of how trends, when flights are typically cheaper during the week, when they're cheaper, in different times of the year. And that will give you some savings as well.
Yeah, to add into that, right? one of the things that I like to do it's like we are on this hunt to get a particular price, right?
We will not pay over
Yes.
whatever the price is, and we will stick to that. That's another tip too.
We just we've got a goal and we're going to stick to it. And we like booking on a Tuesday, right? It's a simple thing. Like you see all these people posting book on a Tuesday. More often than not, we found that booking on a Tuesday has been cheaper. It's not always the case.
Yeah.
But there
cheaper
are
than
times,
the weekends.
Yes.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
also flying midweek if at all possible, because you can fly during the middle of the week. People, you can get better deals. So that's what we found.
And let's not negate the fact that there's so much vacation to be had in driving places. You know, we love flying. Our kids love just the whole experience of flying. But there are places, you know, within an hour of here that we haven't been that are vacation destinations, 2, 3, 5, you know, whatever. And I don't want to put down, you know, driving places for vacation because obviously you can save money doing that and experience. There's so much of the U.S. that we've yet to experience with the kids that we want to capitalize on as well.
And one of the family vacations we take every 2 years, we drive about 5 or 6 hours, right? And it's an amazing place. And we drive.
Hidden gem.
Yeah, it's a hidden gem in Texas.
It's
at the beach, right? A hidden gem in Texas at the beach. It's awesome. It's amazing, right? So you don't need to be flying to places.
Right.
We like to fly, but we've gone on trips where we've taken road trips, and it's been amazing too. It's about the memories and something related to the driving. A few years ago, also, we discovered that maybe your local airport doesn't have the best deals, and so we drove to Houston one time. And it's a long drive, right? So you got to weigh in the cost factor too.
It is 5 hours.
That's long for me. I'm like the kids, like, are we there yet?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so we saved quite a lot of money by driving to Houston, and we flew out of Houston. And so that, just being flexible. Yeah, being flexible and not just thinking that you have to fly from your local airport, or even that you have to fly to go and enjoy yourself. Like there are places an hour away. There are states around us. Texas is huge, right? It's like 14 hours from one side to the next. But it's massive, right? But if you live in a smaller state, you can drive to a new place and you can make memories with your family using things like Airbnb, VRBO. There's lots of sites that you could use where you can get good accommodation at reduced prices.
Yep. So what trip would you say meant the most to you that we've taken in the last 10 years now?
They all carry significance for me. I know this is like, I get emotional about it, but the South African trips for me every year, just because my family, for those of you that don't know, I'm blessed to be married to Brittany, and we've started a life on this side in the United States, but my family is back in South Africa. So being able to go home, but then also just to see as our kids are growing up and the memories that they are making with their cousins and getting to know my side of the family is, it's important for me culturally, but also just those memories because my parents are getting older. We're all getting older, right? So those are great. But if I set that aside, I think I'm going to have to go back to the trip last year for spring break, right?
Yeah.
Just the Europe trip.
That was going to be mine too.
Yeah, I think it was just the different cultures and even like just Addie, she was 4 at the time, I think, like in Paris, right?
Yeah.
Wanting a steak.
I told them, I'm like, this is your test. If you do not pass this test, we're not traveling again. Just kidding. But it was our first trip where the kids could really take care of themselves. We walked 20 to 30,000 steps a day.
As adults, so you got to double that for them.
For the
like
kids,
nearly 40,000 steps a day for a 4-year-old and a then 7-year-old.
Yeah, we only spent a few days in each city, so we were on the move quite a bit, and they rocked it out of the park. And so I was like, okay, this is you passed the test. I can tell that you guys are able to stick it out with us because Mommy and Daddy go hard. We travel at weird hours and we move around a lot because we're still blessed and able to do that. So we like to go fast, and they were able to keep up with us. I was quite impressed.
Yeah, they did good.
So what's a trip you're hoping to take one day?
I am hoping to travel down to South America one day because that's one continent that I have not visited.
Yep.
And then obviously Antarctica, but that's, the prices to get to that place like 10 or 15,000 per person, right?
Well, we'll get there one day.
One day.
That's mine. Mine is, we've done Australia, we've done quite a few countries together, but I want to do the hard. I want to, go through the Drake Passage and take the Antarctica trip, and because it's one of those once in a lifetime things. So that's definitely up there. And then also Greece. I'd love to go visit Greece and go to the Greek Isles. And I was about to say another one. I just need to stop. I'm going to keep going talking about travel.
I want to go to Argentina and eat the meat. I like the meat.
So as we wrap up, our 2 cents question of the day is something that I've been working on doing more of recently, which is reading. So my question for you is, does listening to an audiobook count as reading the book?
So for a person like me who doesn't really like reading, I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
In my second year of university, I was taught how to speed read. And so actually sitting down, I know people like you like to pause and it's relaxing. I just want to get to the end. So I'm going to speed read. The only book that I actually take my time reading is my Bible. But aside from that, it's like rushing through, like I got to get to the end. It's just like, it's not relaxing for me. It's kind of like, yeah, it's too much. So yeah, audiobook all day, any day.
Okay. Well, that wraps up today. We will see you next time on the Our 2 Cents podcast.